We're back and we're moving into our first conversation for this morning. Of course, we reported earlier on the results of the U.D.P Leadership Convention, where the results were revealed a bit before 4 p.m. and within a very, very tight race, Shine Barrow emerged as the official leader of the United Democratic Party. And of course, contender in that race was Honorable Tracy Panton.
Good morning.
And she is with us this morning having a conversation about this campaign and about the results. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning to both of you, and of course, good morning to our viewers.
A missed, and I said it earlier now, and so I think it's only right I start with that. A missed opportunity for Belize. That's what some people are saying. A missed opportunity to see the next Mia Motley of the Caribbean, the Mia Motley of Belize. Of course, speaking to you. What do you say when you hear that, when you think about that?
Well, that's indeed very humbling to think that the people who think of you in that way. The journey was a very steep hill. I said that when we started this process. We had no illusions that it would have been easy. But I am particularly proud of what we were able to accomplish yesterday. It is clear that democracy is alive and well in the United Democratic Party. We had an internal convention to seek a new leader of the party, and I think that convention and the campaign certainly within a very short period of time we were able to cover a lot of ground. It was an amazing journey for me, having the opportunity to travel to almost every nook and cranny of this country, meeting with members of our U.D.P family who I may not have had an opportunity to interact with before. I certainly have an opportunity to interact with my colleagues, but not necessarily with our delegates. And listening to them and learning from them and being able to share ideas with them has been an enlightening and enriching experience. Certainly, there's some disappointment. I think I would have wanted to win. I think my candidacy brought a lot to the table. Yeah. But in these kinds of competitions, somebody will emerge the victor. I take this opportunity publicly to congratulate my colleague, the Honorable Shine Barrow, our new leader of the United Democratic Party. And as I said through the campaign, and I will say this now, that the party has a lot of work to do, a lot of work, a lot of healing, a lot of uniting, a lot of rebuilding. And I certainly will put in my pound of flesh to ensure that we accomplish that goal in the shortest amount of time. We need to be a viable opposition. This country deserves it. And so I certainly will not be a detractor. I certainly will do what I can to support the work of the party in moving us forward.
So I appreciate you kind of sharing your look forward, but let's for a moment kind of dissect what's happened over the past just month and a half, and even just yesterday for a period of about an hour when those votes were being counted. There was a moment where word was that you were going to win. Tell us about that emotional high and low for you, and then finally coming to acceptance with the results.
Well, you know, I'm still unclear what happened in the accounting process, and I say that because there were some discrepancies, and at the end of the day I had requested a recount just to be absolutely clear because there were some discrepancies. The chairman of the party in his, he has the right, the authority to make that determination, refuse for a recount, and indicated that if I wanted a recount, I needed to take the party to court. That's not going to happen. This party certainly does not need any further divisions or divisiveness as we try to rebuild. So, there's always that lingering thought that having the confirmation would have been helpful, I think, to the process of rebuilding and uniting. However, I have accepted the results. We knew it was going to be a tight race. We had no illusions about that. But that, the results are in, and our delegates have spoken, and I do respect the view of the delegates.
What are those discrepancies? Since you're saying that this will not proceed to court action, what are the discrepancies that made you feel that you wanted reassurance?
Well, in one of the boxes, there were more ballots than there were actual persons who should have voted in that ballot box, for example. So I think we really needed to have the recount, just for absolute clarity in this process. But as I said, I am certainly not going to take my party to court in a situation like this because of where we currently are and what we need to do collectively to ensure that we can hold this administration to account and that we can do the work that we need to do internally to rebuild the party and to ready the party to be able to contest the village council elections, the municipal elections, and ultimately the general elections.
Is your entire team on board with not proceeding with court action?
I'm not sure that they are on board. Ultimately, the decision rests with me. I think it's time, we all need to get some rest. Emotions, of course. There's a measure of disappointment. We've worked very hard in this process, and I think it's time for us to take a breath, exhale a little bit, get some rest, and let us not think about only what's good for us, but we have to look at the bigger picture and what's good for the party. And more importantly, I keep saying this in the campaign, it's not only what's good for the party, it's what's important to Belize at this time in us maintaining a robust democracy.
There was a particular moment, since we're talking about the recount and the court action, there was a particular moment after the votes were counted where it seemed as if members in your camp, they got infuriated, and you stepped in and you sought to calm the situation. You said, we don't need to care nobody in a court with a one party. Let's go and ask for a recount. You discussed the matter. I've seen it being described as a defining moment when it comes to your leadership. That ability to think on your feet, to calm, to let cool heads prevail. How are you able to kind of ascertain what was happening in the moment and then kind of cause or ask everybody to keep a cool head?
We've been through a very difficult time as a party, and we've had successive leadership conventions, and they have been very divisive. They have done nothing to help us in the rebuilding process that we must go through. And so when I look at what has happened, what has transpired in the party over the last 17 months or so, I really feel very strongly that we are a U.D.P family. A U.D.P family must mean something. It's not just words you utter. And, on our side of this competition or this run, this race, we wanted to win. And so I would expect some of that from my camp, but ultimately we need the party to win, and we need Belize to win. So I am, I have to, it's about leadership, right? It's about making the right decision in that moment. And I strongly feel that we made the right decision. And we will, a time will come perhaps in the future when there is another leadership convention, whenever that is, 2-3 years from now, that we can reassess and determine if we want to be in that race again. But for now, our delegates have spoken.
So what do you think was the edge that ultimately made Shambara win?
I think there are lots of things. I think certainly the influence of our former Prime Minister, money. I think certainly a lot of money was being spent in this campaign. I really think those things weighed significantly in this process. But that is the culture we have nurtured in this country in terms of politics. Those things are real. I tried to, and I didn't try to, I did. I maintained a very clean campaign, above board. We hit no punches below the belt. Again, because I feel that it's not healthy for the kind of environment we need to nurture within our organization.
Now, so from the outside looking in, people will see this as your loss, as a rejection of the party in the older or more experienced representatives. With the exception of the former Prime Minister, who naturally supported his son, you had the majority of the experienced representatives and well-known and senior UDPs in your camp. Mm-hmm. Do you see that as such, as perhaps a rejection of the old and a need for change?
No, I don't know if it's a rejection of the old. I don't know, for example, how much consultation or delegates or standard bearers did, for example, with the wider population. Mm. I feel very strongly that in terms of public support and public sentiment, we won by a landslide. Yeah. However, we have 516 delegates. 516 delegates are very easily, you can influence a small group of delegates. I don't think 516 or whatever the figure is representative of the views of the membership of the United Democratic Party. And it's certainly not representative of the electoral pool in the country. But it is what it is. And I will certainly be advocating for constitutional reforms within the United Democratic Party, because we must have a sense of fair play. We must be more inclusive in our decision-making processes. We are a mass political party, and so we must take on board the views of the persons that we seek to represent. 516 is not the number. 38% of the electoral pool supported the United Democratic Party in the last general elections, and so we need to take that into account.
Yeah. Ultimately, 256 people decided. But going back to the campaign itself, and let me just take a moment. I wouldn't want it to go unsaid. Or condolences on the loss of your husband in the midst of it. I think many people, for a moment, said, "Will she continue?" It was completely understandable if you'd said, "I won't pursue." And I know you've given all your reasons already. But even before that, you stepping forward to challenge the post of leadership was already historic, as the first female attempting to become a leader of a mass political party in Belize. Right. And while there's been a lot of conversations globally and even locally about the challenges of being a female vying for political leadership, we did see some of it play out.
Yes.
Yes. Experience-wise, if we remove gender from it, experience-wise, you were the more fit candidate. Shine Barrow is a first-time representative, and when you look at it, tell me from your point of view where you saw the gender disparities play out. Not, this is an indictment on all of us, because we're still learning how to truly embrace women leadership.
You know, being female was almost a disadvantage. And my opponent, my competitor, my colleague used it effectively, I think, in his own approach to the campaign. You know, I really, my mother's view, you know, we did a short documentary which my mother spoke, is really my view. It's not that I'm going to be a female leader, but I'm going to be a good leader who happens to be female. Those are realities. We live in a very patriarchal society. But I do think, and well, I know for sure, I enjoyed the support of both the female and male candidates in the party, the delegates, sorry, in the party. But we still have a way to go for women who seek political leadership. I was prepared to take that quantum leap. I was prepared to do the work. I was prepared to set the stage for other women who want to seek political leadership. And I hope I made a few more cracks in the glass ceiling for women in Belize. If I did that, I think we accomplished a lot in this campaign. I am going to continue to advocate for greater participation of women in leadership, not only in political leadership, but in all areas of our society, because we have to have a voice. And it takes a great deal of courage to put yourself out there when you're the only one doing it. But we must have a voice, and we must not fear, you know, or be intimidated by the daunting tasks that we have before us. 51% of our population are women. And where we are now is really a far cry from where we ought to be, in my humble opinion.
Did you have the support of the women in the party?
I had support of some of the women. Not all of the women supported me, you know, and I don't want women to support me just because I'm a woman, right? I want women to support me because they believe in what I bring to the table or what I can do, or they believe in my cause or my vision. It's not offering myself because I thought that would have been an advantage. No.
How do you go forward lending support to your party leader, especially in areas where he, as some would put it, may be inexperienced?
As I said, I will do whatever I am able to do to support the rebuilding and healing of the party. It doesn't mean that I will do so void of an opinion of my own, or what I think is good for this party and what needs to be done for this party. My voice is going to be clear, as I have always maintained. But I do think that it's time for all 31 of our elected officials and caretakers to sit at the table and have the hard conversation. There are things that we need to do, and there are things we need to be doing differently. And it's okay if we share a different opinion, but it must be done in a respectful way, and it must be done in a way that promotes fair play.
I think there's this view, because you raised it, there is this view that the old guards, as one would put it, supported Shine Barrow because he seemed to be more open to the idea of them holding positions within the party in terms of being caretakers, etc., versus the position that former leader Patrick Faber, who supported you publicly, took. What is in your view, what is the position in terms of those old guards? Do you see them holding any sort of position, any sort of influence within the party moving forward? And what's your position on that?
Well, I think we need to have constituency conventions. I think that the people in the various constituencies must determine who they want their standard bearer to be. I don't think there are any sacred cows, or sorry, not cows, but there are no sacred positions. There should be. I think that we must stay true to our foundational principle that we are a democratic party, and so those who want to remain as standard bearers of the various constituencies must be able to go to a convention so the people in those constituencies or supporters in those constituencies can determine who that standard bearer will be that will represent the United Democratic Party in the general election moving forward. The sooner we get that work done, the better, so that we can be clear who are the people who will be leading the charge to move the party forward. I think we need to make some changes. And that's my view. I am not saying that there's not a place in the party for all of us, but not all of us need to sit in the front row or should be sitting in the front row. And those are not easy conversations to have, but they are important conversations to have, and we have to determine what is it that we're trying to accomplish. Is it self-preservation? Is it maintaining a robust democracy? Is it that we want to be returned to government in 2025? And then once we determine what those goals are, then we need to work towards it and be honest and open and frank and make hard decisions when we need to make the hard decisions.
You said about people in the front row, and I want to ask this question before we lose the opportunity. When we talk about what is happening within the U.D.P, it plays out publicly and it has an impact on the wider public.
Yes.
The budget debate was a clear example of that. There were only 2 representatives present throughout the entire time. I know Honorable Pat came in and out, but ultimately 2 of 5, less than 50%. It is one, I want to say, the opposition are paid positions, so it's a lack of fulfillment of duties. But secondly, it is failing the Belizean public, all voters who went out. What do you say? I mean, how do you go back to your party and say, look, this is beyond just us and the color we wear. This is about what we offer to the Belizean people.
I agree. I think we have a duty and an obligation, a responsibility to be present and to participate in House proceedings, particularly the debate. It's such an important public policy statement. I have no knowledge of why certain of my colleagues were not present. I do know that the Honorable Patrick Faber is out of country. He has not returned to country. I'm not certain what the situation is with my colleague from Queen Square, but I do think we ought to do better.
But what do you think it says that her nephew is not able? She's been absent since she's taken over. She's been elected. But what do you think it says that the existing leader of the opposition, now leader of the party, has voted yesterday, is not able to bring his aunt back to work?
Well, maybe he will be able to. I really don't know what has held her back from participating in the process. But I do know that each of us who are elected have a duty and an obligation to represent the people who elected us. We must be the voice for the voiceless. And so I certainly hold that responsibility as sacred. Sacred. I offered myself political office because I wanted an opportunity to serve my constituency and serve my country. And that's a duty and obligation that I will carry out for as long as the people allow me that opportunity.
Now, looking at the things like Caucus for Change, those were some of the public signs of the fractures internally. Do you think that bodies like the Caucus for Change will continue to hold a presence moving forward?
I can't say. I certainly am not a member of the Caucus for Change. I think that that process or those kinds of specialized groupings move away from uniting the party. In that's my personal opinion. I am hopeful now that the matter has been settled, that a leader has been chosen, that we all agree that we need to move forward, that that kind of splintering of the party will come to an end.
So, moving forward, you've said that you want to support Honorable Shine Barrow as the new leader of the party. Do you think that he is open to feedback from the rest of the party in terms of helping him grow as the new leader?
Well, I hope he will be. I hope he will be. This is his first official day on the job. We haven't had a chance to meet. I did congratulate him yesterday, certainly on his run and on his win. I am hopeful that the people who he has surrounding himself will understand the absolute importance of forging a united front and moving forward if we are serious about serving this country. And so it will be left to be seen how we proceed, but certainly it is my view that the United Democratic Party needs all hands on deck to move us forward.
What do you think it will take for the U.D.P to move past the challenges of the past almost 2 years? You're looking at 2 leadership conventions before the general election, a massive defeat in the general and subsequently municipal election, and it's just been turmoil.
Yes, it has been tumultuous. It has been. A lot of healing has to happen. And for me, the first step to the healing is that we have to be honest about what has happened and why it has happened. And then we must make a commitment that we will not allow that to happen again. We will not allow it to happen again. What has happened in these campaigns, all of them, including this one, there's some things that we should stand against, because it might not affect you now directly, but in the future it potentially can affect you. And I think our ultimate motivation has to be what's good for the people. How do we serve this country, even if it's just 5 of us in the House? And how do we rally the support of our colleagues to help bolster our position as a party, and how we bolster our efforts to hold this present administration to account? It really will take some forgiveness, some frank conversations, and our ability to put our own personal ambitions aside, maybe for the greater good of the party.
Do you think that after all that has happened, leadership within the U.D.P is of the view that you must now walk a tight rope in terms of your leadership, in terms of what you do in the public? Is there this heightened sense of awareness now? You've seen 3 leaders within the last 17 months, as you've rightfully said. Some people that say uno go bad. Is that the case within the party now, that sort of tightrope walking?
The party is not yet united, let's say that, but I think we understand that this hemorrhaging in the public domain has done no good for us, has done no good for the party, has done no good for the country. I think we all understand that. And it's now time for us to say, and we're going to have, it's not going to be an easy fix. There's no magic wand. There's nothing like that. It's going to be time and effort. And so, and goodwill and all of these things. So, but we need to have those discussions, whatever they are, internally and not in the public domain.
Your campaign was "the time is now." Will will the time come again later? Are you, have you decided that you would put yourself forward again if there is another leadership convention?
Absolutely. I am very clear in my own mind why I chose to offer myself as a candidate to lead the United Democratic Party. And those reasons haven't changed. I really believe that I bring a lot to the table. And I am, I don't make commitments willy-nilly. When I make a commitment, I stick with the commitment. And a lot of people have asked me that question, Marlene. It would have been understandable if when your husband made his transition, that you would have stepped back. I made a commitment, and I could not fall short of that. I had to complete that process. That was important to me. I'm sure it would have been important to him. It was important to my family. When you make these decisions, you don't make these decisions alone. Your family comes with you in this process. And so I was not prepared to let myself down, my husband down, my family down. And I was certainly not prepared to let down the hundreds of people, thousands of people who supported me through this process. It has been absolutely amazing. People I have never met in my life who kept texting me and encouraging me and supporting me however they knew. And so for me, that is when leadership is important. When the chips are down and when you're facing your greatest adversity in your life, that you're able to push through and hold on to your hopes and aspirations and dreams and vision for a better Belize.
And when is the next leadership convention?
Well, according to the party's convention, it's every 2 years.
Yeah.
Every 2 years. So I'll keep working. I'll keep working for the party. I'll keep
That would
staying
be right before general election.
If
There's no snap election.
If there's no snap elections, and if there are no revisions of the Constitution that will look at that, as we had done previously when the Prime Minister was about to make his transition. We had made some changes to the party's convention constitution to facilitate him staying on a little longer. So all sorts of dynamics certainly can happen, but I am fit to lead. I am fit to lead now, and I am sure I'll be fit to lead in the future. And so I will continue to work with my colleagues, to stay in touch with our delegates, because that is required if we're really going to heal this party and move forward as a viable alternative to govern.
What's the lesson that Tracy takes away from this?
There are many. There are certainly many. But Marlene, there are more good people in this world. And the tremendous amount of support that I got in this process inspired a renewed sense of hope in me of what is possible. We still have a long journey ahead of us, but we cannot fear, and we must continue to walk boldly and unapologetically ahead to realize your own dreams, but also to realize my aspirations for this country. I think we have so much potential, not only as a party, but as a country. And I want to be part of that movement for change, and change for good.
Some say that Belize is not politically mature enough for a female leader in politics. Do you agree after this experience?
I do think that we're still very patriarchal in our views in terms of women in political leadership. I think we have been more accepting of women in other leadership in other areas, but in political leadership, yes, we have a way to go.
Any closing thoughts to our viewers this morning?
Well, I just really and truly want to thank everybody who participated in the democratic process yesterday, all our delegates throughout the country, and the Belizean people who remained engaged in this process as we sought to to determine a new leader for the United Democratic Party, there was so much engagement in social media, for example. I had an amazing team, and I have an amazing family, and I really want to thank you for supporting me and for lifting me up at a time when, you know, I could have taken my step back. But I did this because I believe in what we set out to do, and we will continue to work for the greater good of Belize.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in. I think it speaks volumes because a lot of people hide after a loss. I think it speaks volumes that you have been facing the media, and we appreciate you coming in and sharing your experience.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, with that, we'll take another break, and when we come back, we have the CEO in the Ministry of Education who will be giving us more details on the free education program and other stuff going on within the Ministry of Education. You don't want to miss that conversation, so please stay tuned.